This is ogforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV NFC terminals for countersale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Aldrich Web Solutions. Are you a distributor using Acumatica, yet struggling with an e-commerce fit? US-based Aldrich Web Solutions out of Marion, Illinois, has 2 decades of experience helping distributors find success online. Our team of experts built the integration, creating websites that work effortlessly with Acumatica. With our reputation for swift customer service and meticulous attention to detail, we are the perfect fit for distributors needing online solutions. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Friday, November 15th, 2024, and this is episode number 142. You can find related links on the episode page at augforums.com/episode 142. Today I'm talking with Matthew Hensley about his experience with Acumatica as a customer, implementing it, and whatever else we wind up talking about. Matthew, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Glad to be here.
I always like to start with the brief origin story of all of our guests to set the stage here. So maybe you could tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you landed in the world of mid-market ERP/Acumatica.
Yeah, so I'm originally from a little town called in Greenville, Tennessee. It's East Tennessee near the Tri-Cities area, Johnson City, Kingsport, Bristol. Never imagined I'd have some kind of opportunity like this today, growing up in such a small rural area. I actually went to high school, elementary school, and college within 10 miles radius. So that might be a first for your show. So I graduated in Tusculum College in 1994. And it's just, I guess it's Tusculum University now. It's been so long ago, they've actually changed from a college to a university. So that's kind of scary.
How does one do that? Do you know, like what makes you cross the line? Is it just marketing, or is there some official thing? I've always wondered that.
Yeah, I think it's just marketing myself. But anyways, it was kind of cool, though. It was the bicentennial class. So the college was founded in 1794. So pretty neat experience. So professionally, I've been in manufacturing all my life, 30 plus years now, which is insane for me to say. I still feel like I'm 30 years old, but I actually have 30 years experience now. Fortunately, I've been able to be part of ERP implementations really my entire career. My first ERP implementation was in 1998. So yes, pre Y2K, and happens to be the last time Tennessee Vols won the national championship in college football.
Love it.
So today I'm actually working for a company, Protomet Corporation. We're located in Loudon, Tennessee, which is just a little west of Knoxville, Tennessee, in Smoky Mountains, so a beautiful area of the country. I've been here for about 6 plus years now, and we just recently, actually, it's only been a year and a half that we've been live on Acumatica. So we're fairly a newbie to the community. And that was a journey in itself, in the fact that we you know transitioned from 150 self-contained systems and brought all that information into one ERP. So we actually went from nothing to Acumatica.
Oh, wow. 150. So you may not be able to say this, and if you can't, totally fine. But if you are able to, are you able to give us like ballpark annual revenue and ballpark number of employees? Just get a general idea of how the size of your company.
Yeah, we're a privately held company, so I probably will not discuss revenues, but I can tell you headcount wise, we run anywhere from right now I think we're at 275, 280. We've been as high as over 300. Since we do supply the marine industry, OEMs with aluminum parts that we make, actually design, program, and make. The marine industry went crazy during COVID. Everyone wanted a ski wake boat because they couldn't travel and do those things. So we're kind of on a little bubble right now in the marine industry, but we expect it to take back off soon.
So, like, what kind of aluminum you make stuff that you put on boats, or what? Or you make the stuff you make the boat shell itself, or what is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually partner with the OEMs or boat manufacturers, which the vast majority of manufacturers are actually located in this little area of the country. And we design and manufacture products. You'll know things like clamping board racks, as well as the tower assembly that holds the speakers on those ski wake boats. So we make those parts, and then we ship those. In some cases, just local delivery, since they're right next door to us. And in some cases, we'll ship across the country, or even into Mexico or other countries.
Interesting. So Detroit, I think, is still ground zero for automotive manufacturing in the United States. It sounds like Tennessee is ground zero for recreational water vehicles. I call them boats or what marine industry. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, especially freshwater. The saltwater water manufacturers are a little bit more on the coast, the eastern coast, but freshwater ski wake, yes, this is kind of ground zero for that industry in the country.
I love these type of, I don't know, that's probably, I would probably call that a micro industry, but I love learning about, just the wide variety of things that people can build a business on, right? That's really cool. So you supply the manufacturers that make stuff for boats. That's that's my description of it. And you said you had was it 150 like systems or entities, or what was that?
Yeah, it was probably an exaggeration on my part, but we're primarily an engineering facility and we manufacture, right? So we have a lot of engineers do a lot of great things here. We like hard things, difficult things. We like challenges. We're not going to wait on a product or a system to be available. We'll build it. So we had a lot of really good systems that engineers and others had built in the company, but we didn't have that centralized area where all the data and where the truth lied. And you don't get that until you have an ERP system, right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a culture at an engineering place. I remember, oh boy, back when I worked at Deloitte, so this is like early 2000s. going and auditing a manufacturing company that did, I don't know, something with oil piping. So very engineering thinking, right? And their their controller had basically written his own ERP system, and like it was perfectly designed for their company, right? And I've seen this before with engineering companies specifically, where, and I'm curious if this is the case for you all. Was it the case where someone had developed something and then they started to get close to retirement and that's why they started looking for a new system? Or what was the trigger to get off, of the homegrown stuff?
I think the trigger was, I have a vast background in ERP systems. I've been in SAP, Oracle, Bond. So I kind of understood, why it was important to be in an ERP system as far as having that one central uh, data point of truth. And, as this company has grown and has grown tremendously over the years, we've just got to that point where we really need that centralized area that we all can work from and contribute to. And it's really changed the business. It's created a lot of challenges for us, and honestly, in some cases, our probably internal grown system was probably better than what we received on the Acumatica side. But again, it's give and take, and there's definitely reasons why you want to share that one centralized point of truth and work from that.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that's why I asked, because yeah, whenever I've seen that at especially an engineering focused company, those homegrown systems, you can't beat them, right? Because they were designed exactly for the business. And a lot of times it's that the person who wrote it is retiring, or the technology it was built on is, not supported anymore, or just really old, right? There's some trigger that happens, because otherwise it works great for the business, right? And it sounds like in your case it was just the business growing and needing, just having more employees, more departments, wanting everyone in one system rather than multiple homegrown systems, sounds like.
Yeah, and it's difficult to scale up all those systems, right? We're all about at Protomed about scaling up and being able to be in a position to scale up and grow. And we believe growth you don't arrive at is a journey. It's actually not a destination. It's not for us. We want to constantly grow. We want to constantly learn. We want to be challenged. We want to do things that are hard. And so having all those systems, it's just really difficult for those to grow without adding people or additional resources to make that happen. And so, when it's all said and done, what we'll find out is having this one area that we're all working in and making it better. It's going to be a strong tool for us in the future.
Awesome, awesome. And I could see how Acumatica would be a good fit for that engineering mindset, because of the ability to customize the system, a lot of low code, no code ways, and then even full blown developer customizations. You think that was part of what you were aware of when you were evaluating things?
Yeah, it was exactly. Fortunately, I was part of the steering committee team in making the decision on what software to go with. We actually looked at some others. We looked at Epicor was one that was a finalist for us, and I have some real strong team members too that had some knowledge and some input in what was the best system for us at the time. I guess looking at it, you're exactly right. We like the flexibility of Acumatica, whereas an SAP might corner you in. You shall do this process this way. We've learned in that with Acumatica, with some flexibility in the way we can configure things and do things, we didn't feel like we were going to be cornered into some canned way of doing business that might not be the best way to do business for Protomed.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I I feel like Acumatica is in some ways more of a platform than an application, and you could, if you wanted to, build that whole homegrown thing on the Acumatica platform. I think you need to be wary of upgrades and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you want to leverage as much as you can, but it is nice to know that it's comforting to know that you can go that direction if you want to, depending on the specific use case.
Yeah, and we understand the volatility of doing customizations, and I was actually promoting zero customizations that go live, just because I know what kind of problems that can present in the future. And so we've kind of been very limited in what customizations we have done. We have done a few, but very limited because you're right. I mean, every time there's a version upgrade, guess what? You've got to test that customization and make sure that that doesn't break because Acumatica is not looking for that type of scenario. Um, so, we've been very cautious there. And, I think going after the third party integrators and the way to go and find solutions that maybe Acumatica doesn't have, the marketplace was a great place to start looking for some of those resources.
Perfect. Yeah. What about the rollout then? So you mentioned going live. What kind of approach did you take? Like, did you spin up certain modules phase one, other modules phase two? Did you do everything at once? How did that look?
Yeah, so I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of guy. So to me, it just that seems like that's always been the least painful experience is just going live. Go for it, because once you do that, I mean, you're never really ready to go live, right? Don't kid yourself. There's not a point in time where you can 100% say I'm ready to go. So sometimes you just got to get to the point where you feel comfortable enough to jump into the water and do it, and don't look back and continue fixing the problems and gaps that anybody that implements will find once you go live.
That sounds to me like the parenting approach. At least in my case, I feel like you're never ready to be a parent. At some point, you just have to go for
That's right.
it. um, so what'd you do then for go live? What modules did you launch all at once there?
Yeah, so we are a manufacturing company. Of course, we are using the manufacturing version of Acumatica. We did go live with the projects module, which is something maybe some manufacturers may not do. And of course, we have the inventory purchasing, production orders. The advanced financials was also a need. So that's kind of where we started. Um, we did put CMS in, but we really found ourselves not using it. So we just kind of backed off of that for now. We might do that at some point.
CMS or CRM? Actually, I'm not familiar with CMS.
Sorry, CRM. I'm sorry.
CRM. Okay, CRM.
Yeah.
Um, and projects. So projects doesn't surprise me because of the engineering nature, right? That sounds like job shop mentality. And whenever I hear projects and manufacturing, there's always like a trade-off there, right? Like you're on the one hand, you're making widgets, on the other hand, you're making unique things. How do you sort of draw the line, or how do those two modules live together in your environment?
Yeah, so interesting you brought that up. I actually implemented projects uniquely from, I would say, 99% of people who implement projects. And the fact that I'm
Ooh,
using
do tell.
projects,
Yeah, do tell. This sounds interesting.
so I'm using projects actually to track capital assets. So that is what I'm using project module to do, which it does a great job for. We talked about doing some prototype work at some point where we can easily set up a prototype project. Anything that's purchased for that prototype activity could be purchased and assigned to that project, and uh, you could potentially bill that out to the customer. So it typically works that way. But I primarily wanted it just to where I could track capital assets.
So you're basically using it as the fixed assets module?
You
And
got it.
why not use the fixed assets module? I'm curious. This sounds interesting.
Yeah, so the reason why we did not use the fixed asset module, one, it was just out of scope, this particular implementation. I had so many other responsibilities. There was just no way to really get to that fixed asset module. And currently, our fixed assets are basically housed and managed by our CPA firm. So they're only really interested in what we've spent on an asset and when we put an asset in service, and then they take care of that. But from a tracking standpoint, I definitely wanted a way to know how much I spent on a particular asset. And that's
So
what we're using Acumatica for.
so it sounds like a pretty light use of the projects module, would you say?
It is.
Unique
I
slash
definitely,
light.
it's,
Like your inventory and everything is all flowing through
yeah,
manufacturing, and
yes,
you're making widgets from an ERP perspective
correct.
for the most part. Okay.
Yes, we are.
So everything that engineering does dumps in as a bill of material. Is there any type of integration there between whatever CAD software they're using?
Yeah, and actually, I can't speak to it much because I wasn't really part of that implementation. But we do. We had CAD. I'm going to get this reversed probably. So forgive me, engineers that listen to this podcast. But we had called CAD Talk, and we went to CAD Link or CAD Link to CAD Talk. I think it's CAD Link to CAD Talk. Yes, so we are using that for design software. And there have been quite a bit of work done to make that link work, and they're continued to improve that. So, that again, I can't speak to that much because it's kind of left to the engineers, but we are interfaced that way.
But there is, and yeah, you're I forget if you said it already. I was just checking your LinkedIn profile. Director of Accounting and IT.
That's
Is that
correct.
right? So yeah, so like you're more on the finance side, but props to you for stepping up and leading the charge on the ERP. But then I'm sure you have subject matter experts in the operational area. But it sounds like whatever CAD software it is, there's something that talks to Acumatica from a bill of material perspective. And do you know if that was like a third party thing, or is that some native Acumatica thing or some custom thing?
I really couldn't speak to it. I'm sure it's
That's
probably
okay.
combinations of those.
Something there though. Yeah, something sends it in. Um, what about any interesting customizations that you had to do? Or it sounds like for the most part you went with out of the box, or was there, I think you mentioned there was one or two things that you did.
Yeah, there's not really any cool customizations I could think of to share with you. I mean, it's just a few minor things that we did, but nothing really cool or outstanding on the customization side. Again, we try to limit that as much as possible, just knowing, that can be a future issue with version upgrades.
That's awesome. I mean, even if you embellish the 150 different systems, I mean, even if it was a dozen systems, being able to replace all those with a fairly standard Acumatica, in terms of not needing a lot of customizations, well done. That's a heavy lift. I'm sure that it did it. Can we talk about how long it took from like kickoff to go live? Was it a year-long project? How long did it take?
Yeah, so where the struggle was, it was originally set for like a year to go live, but it ended up being about a year and a half journey. And really, honestly, it wasn't the problem with the configuration or how we wanted to configure, or it was more a concern of our data. Our data was not in good shape. Right, we didn't really have that base data that we have today in Acumatica because they were spread across all those different systems. Right. So
Sure.
bringing all that information together and making it work, that was the challenge. And it took much longer than what we thought it would take to do, as very normal, right, in an ERP implementation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I would think even something as what you would think would be standard, like was part numbers a struggle? You might have had, especially with the engineers. Engineers might have had their own set of numbers, and inventory has their own set, and maybe even multiple systems on the manufacturing side. Was that one of the cleaning
Yeah,
jobs that
that
had
was
to be done?
that, that was certainly one of the challenges. With Acumatic, you have non-stock stock. So, what's classifications? Why would we want one versus the other? We primarily struggled more in the bill of material structure. We have multi-layer bill of materials. It goes. We actually in some bills we have 7 levels of bills of material in a single product. So when you have that, complexity, it just takes a while to get it configured the way Acumatica was expecting it to be.
Yeah, but both from a like clean up your data and then also structure it properly to import it into Acumatica. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yep.
Um, awesome. So it sounds like not heavy on the customization side. You mentioned like a couple hundred employees. How many do you know about how many people are actually using Acumatica, touching the system in some way?
Yeah, that's the great thing. We had used a software. It's called ShopTech. We didn't really use it for ERP, but it was mainly ordering and shipments prior to Acumatica. It wasn't really an ERP. It didn't have bills of material. We didn't buy flush materials. I mean, none of that. At the time, I think there were 30 some users of that software. And now on Acumatica, man, I couldn't tell you. I would say at least 100 users. 150 users. A lot of our shop floor employees now are involved that were not involved in the past with the production order process.
Awesome. That's solid. Yeah. So sounds like light on customizations. What about ISV products on the operational side or on the finance side? You're pretty early on your Acumatica journey, but have you added on any ISVs?
Yeah, honestly, I thought let's take a year or two break after going live. Let's breathe.
Sure.
Let's
Yeah.
let's absorb all of this change. But that's not who we are at Protomet, and that's the great thing of working at Protomet. We're all about advancing forward, growth, and we just couldn't help ourselves. We had to dive in and start looking for other solutions and improving the product. And that's one of the things I would challenge anyone, especially if you're going live now, listen to this podcast. Don't wait to start improving. You've got to improve on day one. So as soon as it's launched, day two is going to be, okay, what are we going to do to improve this? Now you're going to be cleaning up some data, you're going to be doing some things, but don't lose focus or sight on, what can you leverage to make this product even better. And so a couple that really caught my eye
Can I
early
ask though,
on.
is it okay if you like take a little vacation to celebrate the win and maybe you think about it subconsciously on the vacation and maybe you're out at the lake on a boat or something and you start thinking about these day two things. Would that be okay to celebrate the win a little bit?
Well, you know how it goes when you go live. You can't take off. You have to work, right?
That's true.
Somebody's got to stay and clean up all the mess, and that's literally what we did for several days. We'll work later and clean up messes, and but it did get better. And yes, we do celebrate. We know how to celebrate. We don't do a lot, but we do take a little bit of time to celebrate. But then it's right back to work. So that's
Gotcha.
we all like that. That's just who we are and what we do.
Gotcha. Love it. Love it. So it sounds like you launched right into it day two. What do we do next after go live? And so, where have you gone in the last year and a half or so?
Yeah, so one of the problems I had early on in the finance area was the financial reporting tool in Acumatica. It's horrendous. I mean, I'll just tell you the truth. It's horrendous. And so I knew I couldn't spend my time even when we were going live. I actually uh, worked with our partner, Lucid Consulting, and I said, "Hey, I'm just not going to have time to create, just your standard income statement, your standard balance sheet in the format that I wanted it. It would literally, and I consider myself fairly techie, and it would literally take me hours and hours and hours to do that. And I'm like, this is just not going to work. So the first product I kind of went after was Valexo, and I have been really pleased with the power of Valexo.
Definitely a popular one. Might even be the most popular ISV product for Acumatica. And yeah, the financial report writer, if you've ever used FRX, it was like a 1980s product. And I think the out of the box financial report writer was just mimicking the way FRX did things. And it's not like rocket science, but it's certainly tedious and time consuming, right? And a lot of like try something, run it, try something, run it, and right, and it just takes a lot of time. Yeah, so Valixo, great pick there. It sounds like that's been a good investment, especially on the finance side for you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you some places we've used Valexo. So once I figured out how the product worked, it's a simple Excel add-in for those that didn't know, and it adds some formulas to Excel. And us accounting geek people, we love formulas, so it added some additional formulas for us. And the learning curve on it was so short, and it just within minutes, I was able to create reports that I could only dreamed of creating in Acumatica. And heaven forbids in Acumatica financial report writing, if you wanted to see April of 2020 compared to April of 2024, and oh, by the way, you want to see March of 2023, right? So that all those are just individual reports. It's just horrendous. Valexo, it's very simple to do that. And where else we used it was the GL details. If you know accountants, they like details, right? We got to know the root source of any transaction in the system.
Down to
And
the penny. Yeah,
There
right.
you go, down to the penny. And it would just drive me insane for those Acumatica users that know what I'm talking about. Literally, I counted the screens. It took me 9 screens to click through in Acumatica to see the entire detail for that transaction. And
Whereas Velixo is what, like one right click and then a left click for drill down, so 2 clicks.
yeah, so that's where I think the product is kind of misleading. They're like, oh, yeah, you can just do this. And you can do that. The problem is it just takes you right into that account analysis Acumatica screen, which does not have all the
Oh,
information, right?
so then yeah. So then, what are you talking about then? What's the piece you're talking about?
Yeah, so what I did, I got so frustrated with that. I'm like, this is not going to work. So what I did was I quickly learned that while using Velexo, it's like, okay, you can basically call out any GI you want to call out in Velexo and report from it. And so what I was able to do, I didn't have the pure technical knowledge on the Acumatica side to join multiple GIs in cases, which is what had to be done to solve for this issue. And so what I did was create multiple. Uh, I used Velexo and called multiple GIs to get the information I needed. So now I have one line item in an Excel file, one entire row. I have everything I need to know about a transaction.
So is VLOOKUP involved there?
It was. So, of course,
Good old
calling these
VLOOKUP.
GIs and merging those together via VLOOKUP. So, as accountants, we live in Excel. And
Yeah,
that's the reality. ERP
yeah,
systems do not replace Excel for us.
yeah.
And so this was a tool, and I recommend anyone that uses Acumatica use Excel.
Yeah, I'm a reporting person myself, and I love Excel as a reporting tool. I don't like Excel as a database to store information and be the authority on that information. But with the Velixo case, that's not what you're doing. The Acumatica is still the authority, and you're using Excel as a reporting mechanism. And to me, I'm curious if you agree with this, but to me, Velixo is like 95% of what is great about Velixo is just that it's in Excel. It's like I get some Velixo piece, great, but it's all the other stuff that I already know how to do in Excel that makes it so great. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And honestly, no offense to Velexo, to your point, it's not really a powerful tool, right? It just does that one
Yeah,
thing really well. And
exactly. Yeah, it's
it's,
Excel itself that's the really powerful tool, right?
that's right. So it's been great. We've not only just it's not only a financial. Once I realized the power of it, I'm like, okay, I got supply chain involved in it. And before long, they were creating the Excel files, and inventory reporting is lacking in Acumatica. You can't even get a simple report in a GI out of the box. So it's just a lot of work. So they took that product and also ran with it. Days of inventory, very important, obviously. They have a Velexo that does that. And it's just, I began working myself and an accountant that works for me on sales reporting. Sales reporting is also lacking, which, in fairness to Acumatica, that's the case for all ERP systems, right? They do not really have the reporting you need as a company out of the box.
Yeah, I feel like Acumatica has less out of the box reporting than a lot of other mid market ERPs. But to your point, no mid market ERP has what you need out of the box. You always need to be able to do something with reporting, right? So love that. So Velixo, I'm curious also, do you do any of the, are you using any of the write back functionality in Velixo? Because I find another thing that happens, Velixo will be primarily a reporting tool, but then it can also sort of turn into a middleware tool where you essentially suck data out of somewhere and then dump it into Acumatica, and Velixo sits in the middle. Do you do anything like that?
So I'm aware of the functionality. I've really not explored it yet. We are in the process of establishing our 2025 financial budget. So this is a great opportunity for us to investigate that tool for that purpose. So maybe I can let you know at some other point in time.
Cool, cool. So Velixo sounds like a good one. Any other ISVs or integrations, like you mentioned the CAD integration? Any other things that you're using there?
Yeah, so the latest integration tool that we found was a tool called Trailed. And I don't know if it's Trail D. I still don't really know. Is it Trailed or Trail D? What do you think?
Well, so I set you up for this one. I'm now working with Trailed, so I knew that you were going to bring this one up. Uh, everyone I've heard pronounce it is Trailed, not Trail D, but I've heard multiple people say, "How do you pronounce it?" So Trailed, yes, like you're hiking on a trail and it's trailed.
Yeah, so this tool honestly is probably the best tool out of the box that I have ever seen in my career, and that says a lot. I've been around, right? I'm already told you I'm pretty old by now, 30 years experience. You know that you got to tack on at least 20 some years to that, so it kind of gives you an idea of how old I am. And honestly, you're always sold this idea that this tool's going to do everything you want done out of the box when you go live. And I've heard that over and over, and that's never been the truth, honestly. But this software is just that. It does exactly what it says it's going to do, which is, I would say within 10 or 15 minutes of the demo, I'd already made my decision that I was going to go with Trill. So
Yeah,
I'll
I
kind of
mean,
give you a little insight
yeah,
in
yeah,
why we were even looking at Trail, maybe.
yeah.
So I try to have a very lean staff. We're all about efficiency, and especially in the front office, and also automation, AI. It's not the future; it's now. And so, we definitely need to be leaning into those tools. And so, uh, essentially, I only have one AP person, and they were handling about 1,200 to 1,500 invoices a month. So, can you imagine entering all that in by hand in Acumatica? It's a lot. So
I
guess
think
what
most
else she
people can
got done?
imagine that because they're doing that. That's what
Yeah,
they're actually doing.
yeah. So guess what else she was doing? Nothing, right? It took her entire day to do that every day. So it's just impossible to do anymore. And so we find ourselves just like any other company, we end up with this huge stack of invoices that either don't have receipts, uh, you know, we have trouble with these invoices, problems. So you end up with this huge stack sitting next to your desk. And guess what? When you get time, you're going to go through those and resolve those, right? The problem was we didn't have time to do that. So that was becoming a big issue for us. So at that point, the only way I could scale up was to hire more staff.
Okay, can I
And
ask you real quick on that? So you mentioned
yep.
you're talking about the stack. You mentioned receipts. You mentioned
Mhm.
1,200 to 1,500 a month. Do you know about what percentage of those were matching to a PO or at least to a PO receipt?
Yeah, I would say 70, 80%.
Okay, so
And
good.
then the remaining would be service.
Most of them, you needed
Most.
a two-way or three-way match. Okay, all right. Sorry, keep going.
Correct. Yep. So, it was just impossible to continue at this rate. And, as our business continued to grow, I grew concerned I was going to have to hire another person. And I'm like, I'm not going to hire, I'm going to look for technology to solve for this problem. And so, I found Trail just searching on the internet. And like I said, the demo was great. And just, within a few minutes, I knew this is exactly what we needed here.
And I think it's interesting when you talk about artificial intelligence. My opinion, I could be wrong on this, but my opinion is that a lot of people hear artificial intelligence and they hear replacing people. I'm curious, in your case, you had one person who was dedicated to accounts payable. Now with Trailed, is that person gone? Or are they only working part time? Or do you have them working on other things in addition to accounts payable?
Yeah, I did. Kind of led up to that earlier, talking about that huge stack, and I'm kind of returned to that huge stack to the side that we really need to resolve. And a computer's not going to resolve those type of issues. They're receiving issues. There are other things that someone needs to be involved in. So I kind of estimated we saved about 60% of her daily time entering invoices by using Drill. 60%. That's pretty incredible. And so by saving that time, guess what? Now she can focus on that stack and making sure she can dedicate more of her time to improving the receiving process, improving the relationships with the vendors, and just makes it so much better. And she's so much more relieved today. There's all it was almost like you could never finish your job, right? And now she can at least leave knowing, hey, I've got the invoices in. We're gonna be able to do the check run this week, and I feel good about where we're at. So it's awesome. And to your point, automation to me is not about elimination of jobs. Automation to me is about uh, keeping good people to solve problems that automation cannot. So, it's about building capabilities of individuals to where they're stronger and not doing necessarily the repetitive tasks that AI can knock out for us.
I love hearing that. I mean, that's what motivates me as well. Like to me, automation is not about replacing you. It's about elevating your skill set to do higher value things. And, cause I can understand if you're in the position of entering the accounts payable, you feel like that's your whole value to the business. And you don't, if that gets replaced, you feel like you're not valuable anymore. But actually, you upskill. You end up doing more valuable tasks, and you become more valuable to the business. Sounds like at least that was the case for your accounts payable person.
Most certainly, and even on the shop floor, some of the automation that we've added in those things, that's the same experience we've had there as well.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're just able to do more as an organization with the employees that you have, serve your customers better. That's awesome. Um, yeah. So why I started working with trails, I heard about it, ran into a trailed customer at Summit that was on a previous podcast episode. Um, I'm curious. I'm like to gather the details. So like what she had told me was that it takes 2 times for Trail to learn a vendor. You correct the invoice, and then she, in her experience, like you had to do it on the second invoice, and then after that, it was pretty much good to go. Does that match your experience, or give me some details on when you say you save 60% of the time? Like, what does that look like? When you run an invoice through, how often are you having to intervene and say, oh no, the total is over here, the freight is over here, or whatever?
Yeah, so what I noticed earlier, even in the demo, the great thing about a trail demo is that as a customer, they'll ask you for a few invoices to use as an example during the demo. Which what's greater than seeing your own stuff flow through the new software that you're thinking about purchasing? And so, me, I'm like, okay, what's the dirtiest, ugliest looking invoice I got laying around? And oh, by the way, I'm not going to keep it in pristine PDF format. I'm going to print it out, maybe rub some dirt on it or whatever.
Crinkle it up.
so, so of course that's what I send, and just remarkably, and they said, okay, the first scan, yeah, might be 90%. I can't even remember what they said on the first scan. They admitted, it's not going to be right exactly because it does have an AR portion it has to learn. But then, they made a comment. I think they say 99.5% after that. And honestly, I'm like, yeah, okay. I've never seen OCR and software work that great, honestly. But it does. It's just incredibly impressive. That paper that was dirty and looked awful and stuff all over the place on that invoice, it scanned it, it read it, and our experience has been exactly that. By the second invoice, it's mapped, it knows what it's doing, and it goes for it.
Yeah, and so there's two things going on there, right? One is the OCR, the optical character recognition, which is able to find the text on the crumpled up invoice with dirt rubbed on it. That's one piece. To me, that part has been around for a long time. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's hard anymore. I'm not sure. But to me, where Trailed stands out is the machine learning piece, where it might have not been able to figure out where the invoice number was, or not been able to figure out which one was the unit cost versus the quantity. And so you might have to correct it for a specific vendor. And all you do is you just change the drop down where it is. You don't have to like do some type of complicated invoice template, something like that. Um, that's to me where Trailed stands out. Is that where it stands out to you? Like you can actually watch it learn?
Yeah, it does. And those are not familiar with Trail, the way the software works, it's in the cloud, it's cloud-based software. And on one side of the screen shows you the OCR, output, and then on the other side of the screen does show you the fields that it has mapped to that OCR document. And yeah, it is powerful. It's very incredible how it can learn that, okay, this field needs to go in this information needs to go in this field, this field, and it's pretty incredible how it's able to do that. Even when you go click a button and pull the PO receipt into the invoice to conduct the match. Well, if you have a service, it'll actually even pull in the details of that service invoice into Acumatica, which is pretty incredible that it could do that. I didn't even know it could do that until after we went live.
Sorry, I was muted. So meaning like both stock items and non-stock items. Is that what you mean on the
Correct.
service side?
Yes. So it's been a great tool for us. I would say, that I go back to that stack of paper that we had, of all those issues. Now I can instruct my AP person that I want everything scanned into Trailed, and there should be no paperwork ever anywhere. And what that does, we can put it on hold. Trailed has a feature where you can put that particular invoice on hold. And so now I can have visibility into what is on hold at Protomet. Right before then, there was this huge stack of stuff, and I had no idea, you know, what the dollars were, how significant, how late were the payments. Now you have that complete visibility into Trail. The other place we used it was the and I know it sounds like I hate Acumatica. I really do not hate Acumatica, but one of the problems with Acumatica I experienced was just the workflow process. I just, to me, it was too cumbersome to even take my time to learn. I'll be honest. And so with Trail, they simplified the workflow approval process to where within minutes we were up and running with approvals of invoices that really had not previously been reviewed, which opened up this whole issue of, oh man, we're paying for that. So I think
Interesting.
that's the other side that you get a pickup that you don't realize as a Trailed customer. You'll really pick up some things like that in the future.
So meaning that you're actually taking a look at your spend before it hits your accounts payable. You don't just have an approval process, but you have an approval process that is actually being paid attention to. Is that kind of what I heard you
That's
saying?
That's correct. And plus, just, we did everything paper wise. So an approval literally meant the AP person stood up from her desk, walked across the room, dropped a piece of paper down. The person may not
Mm-hmm.
be in their office. Could
Mm-hmm.
be days later they finally look at it. And so, we really focused on approving high dollar items. But what we found was there were a lot of low dollar items that were not receiving approval previously. In some cases, that we were paying for services that we no longer used.
Interesting. Yeah, and to your point about just usability of things, like every click matters. We talked earlier about with Felixo, 9 clicks to just having everything right there in front of you. Every click matters. Every piece of real estate on the screen that gets used matters, right? And when you bring something over to someone matters. And so that approval process, I can see how it's not just about having an approval process, it's having one that actually works in the real world at industrial strength. So that's interesting. Um, what I'm also curious, when you talk about that stack of paper, do you feed the whole thing into the scanner and it automatically breaks it up in invoices, or do you have to feed them in one invoice at a time? Do you know?
The method that we use to get invoices at Trail, is that what you're speaking of? Yeah.
Right.
So it has a couple options. One, you can set up an inbox and have all your vendors to email to the inbox, and then Trail will pull it in from that inbox. I chose not to go that route just because I like a little bit more control of what actually makes it into Trail. So my instruction now, we've worked really hard at getting our vendors, almost all of our vendors now, will email us an invoice in PDF. And so, to your point, what we do, we immediately take that and put it in Trail, even if we're not going to pay it yet, even if there are issues and we want to put it on hold, it immediately makes its way into Trailed, and that way we have that visibility in Trailed that we would not had in the old days.
So that stack of paper you were talking about isn't a physical stack anymore. It's a digital stack of issues.
That's exactly right. That you have visibility into, and you know what the amounts are by looking through them.
And the issues that you run into, I'm curious, like what are some of the issues where it's not purchase price variance, maybe, or maybe there's something on the invoice that wasn't on the original purchase order. Are those the kind of issues that you're talking about?
Yeah, mostly, and sometimes receiving errors. Right, they've received one thing incorrectly. They may receive the wrong item off the PO, or maybe it's the correct item, but they received it on a different PO. So just those kind of activities, not necessarily issues that Trailed's created. It's just issues, systems issues that we have,
Gotcha.
process
So now
issues.
you're scanning everything in, so you at least know what your total dollar is, even though it hasn't hit accounts payable yet, because you don't send it in Acumatica until it's been all resolved and approved and all that stuff, right?
Right, and I think I didn't appreciate what that really meant too, in the fact that I was able to keep trash out of my Acumatica bills. Right, the only thing that's ever going to make it in Acumatica now are the bills that I truly want to pay, and so that in itself is powerful, because some people took the other route and they would try to force it into Acumatica, force the bill in there so they have visibility, but then they could either mistakenly pay it and not mean to, and those kind of things. So it's kind of like we segregate and keep Trailed as the in process. And to your point, we don't move it to Acumatic until we're absolutely ready to pay it. No, everything's okay.
Awesome. Thanks for going into those details. It helps me get a better idea of why you throw that 60% number out there. And also, again, love that you didn't turn that person into a 40% employee on a contract basis or something like that. There's plenty of other things, higher value tasks that they're able to do now. That's great. I always love
Yeah,
it. Any other ISVs or even just like future plans for Acumatica or is it now you're always biting off new things? What's next? Or maybe is it more just about process stuff and not so much about software these days?
yeah. There's a couple of problems I want to solve for that we're working through now. One, on the product costing side of Acumatica, which we haven't discussed, but that is the most horrible process I've ever seen in my life. Uh, I just do not
Talking about
like
like
the product costing.
standard costing because of the
Yes,
manufacturing. Ah, okay,
yes.
okay.
It's by far the worst that I've used in my career. And I'll tell you why. I think fundamentally the issue is Acumatica does not save that standard cost roll details in a table. They will create the material, labor, and overhead for that particular cost roll, and you have that history, but you can never recreate the details underneath that history.
So far, I have been able to avoid standard costing. um,
Yeah.
so let me see if I can catch up to your knowledge here, or at least get close enough to converse about it. Is it because it's not storing the details in the inventory layer? Is that the issue, or is it something else?
Yeah, the issue is just it's not saving the details of the standard cost roll process. It's like it puts it in a temp table, it does its calculation, and it gives you the final results, and it shows the final results, and you have the history of the final results. But you never can go back and understand, okay, I have all these items on that bill of material. What did those items cost at that particular time? So it's just, yeah, it seems like I'm the only one in the world that has this problem, and or maybe people have like yourself have been able to
Probably
manage
not.
avoiding
Probably
standard
not.
costing, but yeah, it's just it's been really frustrating for that reason, and as well as another reason. And we got some work on that. Actually, Lucid Consulting has been working with us on finding, basically developing a solution for this issue that we have. And then the other issue is what I call the one line COGS issue. So I happened to go to Acumatica Summit this past year, and I was trying to figure this issue out. But when you invoice, say a finished goods, you invoice a finished goods, it definitely records the ship not invoiced, and then it goes into it'll go into a COGS, but it's only one account. So your COGS always go into just one GL account, because that is what the finished goods, whatever the finished goods COGS says it is, that's what it goes into. So the problem is, us accountants, as we talked earlier, we like seeing down to the cents, right? So we want to know what made up that COGS when I sold it. How much material, how much labor, maybe in a case for me, I want to know how much aluminum went into the finished goods that I sold. Uh, how many brackets or whatever. So that's impossible today in Acumatica, the way it works. So we're trying to solve for that one as well.
So that I think is the one that I'd heard of with the inventory layer, and I think there's two pieces, right? One is that you don't, like you were talking about parts. That's even deeper. But if I step back from that, just knowing what amount was overhead versus labor versus material, when it goes back into inventory, it just goes back into the total dollar amount, and I don't think it knows anymore at the inventory layer what those individual pieces were. That's part of it. Is that right?
That's correct. And so when you sell that inventory, it doesn't have that information, obviously.
And then even taking it further, you want to know when you sell it, what were the component parts that went into it and what were the individual costs of those component parts.
That's it.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, because the manufacturing module was developed by JAMS, an outside partner, then acquired by Acumatica not that long ago, though I can't remember now what year it was. And, they were kind of at the mercy of the Acumatica inventory module, right? They weren't kind of developed by the same team. But now that Acumatica has acquired it, be interesting to see how much those manufacturing things move into the core inventory. And then, of course, they have to have a way to turn that off for just pure distribution environments. So that's above my pay grade to figure out how to do that stuff. But I kind of think that's partly why it is that way, right? Because it wasn't like they developed inventory and manufacturing side by side where they could be feeding the two. Manufacturing was just sort of a bolt on to the inventory module. And you kind of tell that, right?
Right.
They were
Yeah.
just at the mercy of
Exactly.
it. But it'll be interesting to see where Debbie Baldwin takes things. She's the product manager for manufacturing, now that they're all under one roof.
Yeah, and I would love to have the opportunity to influence, what direction we go and what the future might look like in that. So, if I ever have that opportunity, I'd love to take it.
Well, I hope to remember by the time I publish this to send this piece over to Debbie Baldwin, and maybe there's some type of customer group that you can get on to, help the feedback. Do you participate at all on the community.acumatica.com website?
It's shameful to say, no, that's something we have not done. We know we should, because we do want the opportunity to influence products that we use. And, we're willing to work, not only just influence it, but, we're willing to roll up our sleeves and work with companies to make the product better. Because that's ultimately that's what Protomet does. We work with a boat manufacturer to make their product better. If they sell more boats,
Oh
you know
yeah,
what? We sell
good
more
point.
components, right? So we just have that vision and mindset, and our core softwares. I want to have that capability and ability to work with those teams and do what we need to do to help not only influence but help shape it, be part of it.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be a good starting point. Not even just the forums there. You could just start with the product ideas area with those two things that you just mentioned. And my advice there is to be as detailed as possible when you write it up. Instead of treating it like a one paragraph post, really write out the use case. It's not just about the product should do this, it's about why, right? I've seen this in other products, or it would help us with this type of analysis on the financial side, whatever. Writing up that story, to me, when you write up a product feature that has a story to it and it's not just technical, it resonates better. And then you can include screenshots as well. That's another piece of advice, so that you're really essentially making it's a marketing activity, right? You're lobbying. It's like lobbying Congress. You're lobbying Acumatica, not just why they should care about this feature request, but why other people should vote on it, and it should be a higher priority than the other hundreds of feature requests that are out there, right? But it sounds like the two that you have, you can't be alone on those, right? And there might even be some ideas out there already that you could just add your write-up to an existing one and vote on the existing one. But that's a good place to start. You don't even have to be answering people's questions. You could just check out that product ideas area on the community website.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that advice. That was similar advice I was given in Acumatica Summit when I did have the ability to talk to some of the Acumatica employees. So we need to do some work there for sure. Kind of break away from the technical accounting side. You asked about what things are we looking at in the future. One, we're not a big Shopify user, but as our business is growing, we see ourselves using Shopify more. So that integration is definitely on to-do list.
Love
So
that. I love hearing manufacturers think about e-commerce and not just completely rely on the supply chain. I love that. Great. Or at least even just
So,
making it easier for your OEMs to order, right? It doesn't even have to be all the way to a retail type of a thing, right?
so that's certainly on the radar. Another thing on the radar, we're going to look for more opportunities to automate routine processes. I think receiving is a target. There's a potential, possibility to automate that more versus manually entering. So anywhere we're really manually entering a lot of information into Acumatica, we want to eliminate that as much as possible. So that's what we're going to go after next. Even
Awesome.
potential maybe customer order entry. We enter customer orders in one by one as well, right? So we've got areas that we want to continue, and we're going to do exactly what we did the AP. The AP is just the kickoff. We're not looking to remove people from our business. We're looking to build their capabilities and make them even more valuable to our business.
Love it. Love the continuous improvement mindset, the journey, not the destination. That's really digital transformation right there, right? It's not you never arrive. You just keep tweaking, keep improving. That's awesome. Sounds like you got a fun job there, and awesome. Thanks again for coming on and talking about it. Will I see you at Summit this year? Do you know yet if you're going?
Well, Tim, I hope so. Yes, we're definitely going. I'm already signed up. Me and a couple other gentlemen, Grant and Justin, they'll be there. We would love to have opportunity to maybe meet with you while we're out there this year. And I think I do have maybe an opportunity to meet with our partner and some other vendors. So I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Yeah, I will be there too. So I will see you in Las Vegas at the end of January.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of ogforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening and take care.